And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Video Sports page. I'm your host, Carl Pratt. Glad you're along for the program where the emphasis is on local sports. Behind the scenes, Rich Goulart, Dylan Goulart, and Will McKinney putting it all together for us. We appreciate their efforts. Tonight, we've got lots of different stops with our video that we can share with you. We'll bring you up to date on some very good programs. And as far as the high school postseason is concerned, only one team in our viewing area remains alive. That's the Duxbury girls varsity soccer team. But we'll begin this week's edition of our program by showing you two different stops for volleyball postseason action. And our first one, we're tracking down the Pembroke Titans, who had their best regular season ever in the history of the program. In fact, the most wins ever by the program. 19 victories, but you know what? They went into the postseason. They got a bye in the first round. Then they were upset by New Bedford Volk. And this was a tough loss to take for Pembroke because they won the first two sets, and all you got to do is win 3 out of 5. So they won 2 and then lost 3 in a row, which was very, very tough to handle. Let's call on our guys behind the scenes. We're going to show you some early tournament highlights featuring the Pembroke Titans.
Deep breath.
Okay, as tough as that loss was for Pembroke, how about the Sacred Heart Fighting Saints, who traditionally have an outstanding volleyball program? They always go very deep in the tournament. They were the #1 seed in Division III South, and unfortunately, they took on Ursuline earlier this week at Silver Lake, rather at Sacred Heart, the #1 seed. They, too, were taken to a 5th and deciding match. Final count there was 15-13. Let's roll some of those highlights. Okay, once again, the Lady Saints from Sacred Heart. All right, as I mentioned at the top of the program, only one team in our viewing area remains alive in the postseason. That is Emerson Coleman's Duxbury girls varsity soccer team. They defeated Diamond Regional from Fall River in the first round 6-0. With that victory, that means they'll now go up against one of the top teams in the division. That'll be Canton on Friday night at 5 o'clock. Canton with a record of 14-1-1. Tough losses in the tournament for the Carver Crusaders, losing 1-0 at home. Meanwhile, the Plymouth North Eagles lose 1-0 down at Mass Maritime against a North Attleboro team where Plymouth North really dominated that game. But guess what? It was North Attleboro that got the game's deciding goal in the first overtime. Well, there'll be playoff youth football action down in South Plymouth this coming weekend. On Sunday, the Jaguars will be home. They will take on a couple of different teams at a couple of different levels. The Mites, under the direction of Coach Constantine Regis, will be involved, as well as the midget level team under the direction of TJ White. Well, last week, TJ White's team had their backs against the wall against a very good Pembroke team under the direction of Coach Sylvester. And all it meant was whatever team won last Sunday, they'd be moving on to the postseason. 34-32 was the final count as the Jaguars came up with the victory. We have some highlights from Pembroke.
Get ready! Go final! Let's go! You ready? It's ball! Watch 10! Watch 10! Watch 10! Drive! Hold that ball! Nice job.
No, that's a whistle.
That's it. 2-1.
Get out of the way. All right, the Jaguars knocking off Pembroke 34-32 this past weekend. Well, how about the Duxbury High School football team? They won again last week, defeating Silver Lake. They're now a perfect 9-0 on the season. They own a 37-game winning streak over the last 2.5 seasons. Coach Dave Mamron's team will now be moving on to postseason play for the 5th straight year and 9th time in the last 12 years. Meanwhile, Pembroke had a huge win on the high school front, knocking off Scituate. Pembroke, under the direction of Bob Bancroft, will also be moving on to postseason play for the 2nd time in 3 years. Well, there's a huge high school football matchup at Plymouth South scheduled for Friday night. The Plymouth South Panthers, that have won 5 football games in a row, will go up against Nauset. Both teams have undefeated records in the Atlantic Coast League, and a victory by either team will put them in a great position for the 2013 championship. We have this, 2012. We have this opportunity now to replay a portion of an interview I had earlier this week with Panthers head coach Scott Fry. While the voice may not be there, the warm and fuzzy feeling has to be with this program.
Yeah, it's an exciting time here at South. To be in November and playing for a game that means everything, it's exciting.
Well, you took the next question away from me. How important or how much fun is it for you as a veteran coach to be playing for something this late in the year?
It's awesome. You know, we haven't had this experience in a long, long time around here. I'm so excited for the seniors, and it's just been a great year.
All right, a big matchup, obviously, coming up against Nauset. Before we talk about that game, that's not possible If your kids didn't believe what you were saying after 4 weeks of the season, you were able to get them in a good mindset, string together 5 victories in a row. I mean, you got a team that starts the year 1-3. Most teams aren't playing for something late in the year.
No, that's true, and we talked about that as a team, and we've had some very difficult losses in the beginning and some very good programs and teams. But we talked about that being like a preseason. Our goal from the beginning of the year was to win the league championship, and they believed that. I believed it as a coach that we had the type of team that could do that, and here we are.
You're talking about a 5-game winning streak, an overall record of 6-3 coming into this season, or this week's games, I should say. Realistically, if you look back on it, you played a very good Hingham team that's lost just once in overtime to Duxbury. You lose 7-0. You lose to an Abington team that admittedly you coughed the football up on the goal line in the end zone. They're undefeated this week. Realistically, your team could be like what, 9-0?
We could be, and everything happens for a reason, So I don't look at it that way. We just keep looking forward. We haven't looked back. So the record is irrelevant at this point. 6-3 or 9-0 doesn't make a difference to our team. We need to beat Nauset on Friday night.
Well, a bit later on our program, I'm going to share with you an interview I had earlier this week with Jay Lamb. Here's your quarterback. He's also one of the student athletes here that's getting it done, both on the field, in the classroom, in the community. He's being honored as one of the 10 finalists here in Massachusetts for a very prestigious award.
He's a great kid, and there's a lot of I'm very lucky again with my senior class, and Dylan Oxen, deservedly so, gets a lot of recognition with his 28 touchdowns. But Jay has been is the leader on this team. How he goes is how we go. And I'm very proud of him, not just stuff on the field, but off the field. He represents, Plymouth South, the team, the school really, really well.
I mean, isn't this good? Does this give you an opportunity, not just as a football coach or a parent, but say as the athletic director, to pull this kid out in front of all the other student athletes in this Plymouth South athletic program and say, look, here's a kid that has 2 touchdown passes. He's rushed for 9. He's a National Honor Society member. He's being recognized for his community service. And he's just like the rest of you. He wears the Plymouth South colors.
Yeah, like I said, he is a very good role model. And, it just doesn't end with him or start with him either. I mean, we got a lot of kids in this team and a lot of kids in this athletic program, not just the football team, that do great things in the community. And where we've come over the last, say, 5 or 6 years with these sports programs, the number of teams that we have in the tournament, and just how well they represent Plymouth South outside of the sports program is just, I'm very, very proud.
All right, let's back up, if we can, to last week. Another impressive victory by your team, knocking off Marshfield. All those years, Lou Silva beat up on Plymouth teams, whether it's Plymouth North, Plymouth South, whatever. They've had their way with the Plymouth teams, and you and Kevin Cobbin go back-to-back and say to Marshfield, not this year.
Yeah, and we've never beaten Marshfield or Plymouth South. So as a coach, I was very proud of the way the kids handled themselves, and they could have looked forward to Nauset, and they didn't. They took care of business on the field on Friday, and anytime you can beat Marshfield, regardless of what their record is a good win.
All right, let's talk if we won. Okay, head coach Scott Fry joining us on the program. We're glad you're joining us for this week's edition of the Video Sports Page. So excited about this big matchup for obvious reasons. And you know what? Dylan Oxen has led the way offensively with 28 touchdowns this season. We just gave you a sneak preview of our next piece of video. I had an opportunity to catch up with Jay Lamb. Jay is a quarterback for this team. He's one of the captains. He gets it done in the classroom. He's a member of the National Honor Society. He was also recently one of the 10 finalists in Massachusetts for a huge award given out to student athletes who get it done in the classroom, on the field, as well as the community. Let's call on our guys once again. Let's show you a piece of that interview with Jay Lamb. Okay, let's continue with this week's program. We're down here at Plymouth South, and I'm pleased to spend some time with one of the football captains. He's also the quarterback, and he's got a big smile these days for all the right reasons. This is Jay Lamb, and boy, a big football game coming up this weekend, and you guys have been playing all year long for a game that meant something.
Yeah, I mean, it feels great to play for something this late in the season, but I mean, we've earned it, we're well prepared, and we're ready to go. Well,
let's back up the clock if we can. I had the opportunity to do your game against Abington. That's one you thought you should have gotten. You lose to a team like Hingham that lost only once this year, 7-0. You'd like to have that one back, and obviously the frustrating loss at Quincy. So realistically, when you look at your record, it could be so much better.
I mean, it really could. Abington, we should have been up 14-0 in the first quarter. We had them on their heels, and that's a really good team. They're still undefeated this year. Same with Hingham, fumbled on the 2-yard line, and could have been a 7-7 game going into the fourth. And Quincy, there's enough there. So
there you go. Let me back up the clock. We had the opportunity to do that game against Abington, and right out of the gut, you had that long run that I called. And was there any point as you're running down the sideline saying, "Oh, come on, give me 10 more yards, give me 5 more yards"?
I mean, I was sort of shocked by how open it was. I was like, "Is this actually happening?" The first play, and just put my head down, got all the yardage I could, and let Oxen finish off the drive.
You're talking about Oxen finishing off drives. Here he doesn't score against Hingham, okay? But he scores so many other touchdowns. You've known this man. He's your teammate. You've seen him grow up and so forth. I mean, realistically, you didn't expect 28 touchdowns at this point, but does he surprise you at all? And I'm not talking about the touchdowns, but the way he can juke and fake out defenders.
I mean, I've known him since we were 7, 8 years old. I've been playing with him, and his work ethic has always risen above all. So I'm not too surprised. In the off season, we worked very hard at plyometric with Coach Harrington, and we all knew he was going to have a big year.
All right. Obviously, a lot of touchdowns as we're talking about Dylan Oxen. All right, so for you, when you got an offensive threat like Dylan, he scores 28 touchdowns, you're not going to get as many touchdown passes. Obviously, he's the go-to guy. You have 2. But you've been able to offset that with a bunch of your own touchdown runs. And what's that number up to, 9 or 10?
Yeah, it's at 9.
All right, let's talk, if we can, though, as a senior, your expectations coming in this season. Now you're feeling the fruits of your labor. Even though you have confidence, you had a lot. Now you don't win in your first 3 starts. You had to be a bit frustrated.
Yeah, it was frustrating. I mean, everyone worked hard in the off season. Everyone was lifting, and this was a new thing for Plymouth South. No one usually works this hard as this group of kids did in the off season. So we were expecting a lot those first 3 games, and to have that kind of upset that early in the season, it was adversity, but we rose above it. So
yeah, but let's talk about how were you able to turn the corner? And I know it's the old saying, 1 game at a time, but maybe when you get the first one, you're saying, "Oh, about time." You get your second one, you're starting to say, 1 more, and we're going to be at 500. Then you're over the 500 mark, and then it starts to snowball from there.
I mean, once we hit the league games, we really start to buckle down. I mean, the non-league games are sort of like preseason. So when we hit the league games, we're going full tilt, and we're ready. So.
All right, as you can tell from our graphic this week on the program, I'm pleased to be joined by Jay Lamb. He's the senior captain with the football team, which now owns, what, a 5-game winning streak, or is it up to 6?
We're at 5.
5-game winning streak. And you've been part of success in this town at South Plymouth, whether it's youth basketball or youth football and things like this. How's this 5-game winning streak different?
I mean, it's my senior year in high school football. I couldn't ask for anything more. It's the way we want to go out and be remembered, so it's great for us.
Well, if people want to remember this guy, some of the things that he accomplishes away from the field is what's more rewarding to him and his family. I know his parents are very proud. Let's talk about that, because you're also a National Honor Society member. So to get it done on the field, in the classroom, parents can't ask for more.
I mean, it's all about work ethic. They push me to be the person I am. My family does, my friends, my coaches especially. They all push me to get me where I am right now. So.
Well, let me ask you, Jay, when you think about it, even though it's similar work ethics, you see what happens if you apply yourself after hours in the library, at home, on the computer, whatever's necessary. What's come easier for you, being a good athlete or being a good student?
I think naturally I have athletic ability thanks to my parents, but the student part was really tough for me at first. I really had to push myself. But once you get into the mix of things, you start get rolling, it all comes pretty easily. So.
Yep. Well, okay, how about Jay Lamb? 2 passing touchdowns and 9 rushing touchdowns, and he couldn't wait. I did that interview back on Monday. He cannot wait for the kickoff on Friday night against visiting Nauset, a huge game for the Plymouth South Panthers. Well, you know what? Youth basketball is right around the corner, and there are well, put it this way, there are many area youth leagues, very big opportunities for youngsters to participate. You know what? Whether you're down at the Manamet Youth Center, the South Plymouth Youth Basketball League, Plymouth Boys and Girls Club, PNBA. Well, you know what? The oldest league in Plymouth is the West Plymouth Basketball League. Chris Pratt heads up that league. There are lots of kids getting involved. The emphasis from Chris, it's a recreation league. It's not cutthroat. It's not out there trying to see who the big stars are. It's presenting opportunities for kids. And you know what? They kicked off the new season earlier this week because they had a clinic put on by Lamar Reddix, the head basketball coach from Milton Academy. And Lamar also had a great career at Milton High School as well as Bentley College. And I had an opportunity to catch up with Lamar. The oldest basketball league in the town of Plymouth happens to be the West Plymouth Basketball League. And on this night, they kicked off the 2012-2013 season with a clinic sponsored by Milton Academy, more specifically their head foot basketball coach, Lamar Reddix. We appreciate you coming to Plymouth, and basketball's in the blood.
Oh, I love being here. I could do this all day long.
Let's talk about it. Your background, Milton High School, Bentley College. You've had a great career.
I've been fortunate enough to be around some great places, and I was able to coach in college. I coached at Harvard for 7 years and Boston University for a year, so this is who I am.
Let's talk, if we can. We'll show the people some of the work here. There's so many different things you can do with youngsters.
Well, I would just believe in a lot of the fundamentals, especially at this age. A lot of the kids don't have the fundamental base behind them, so let's get as much as that possibly can and just have some fun with it, too.
I was going to say, how do you keep it interesting for the young kids that aren't as talented?
That's the key, is trying to trick them sometimes. Some of the things that we do are disguised in some kind of either competition or try to have some fun with them.
What about for you now, not only just a basketball coach at Milton, but the athletic director? You've had to have vision for all sports.
Absolutely. I played it all when I was their age. I changed in the car from soccer practice to basketball practice, played football, baseball, you name it, I've done it all. So I love being around the sports in general.
Right. If you had a message for the young parent that says, hey, my kid's starting out in youth basketball, I might as well coach because I'm going to be there anyway, what would you pass on to him? How important is it for him to keep things in perspective?
It's the same thing that I even do at the high school level. It's a lot about the competition, but not so much at that age, but really to have fun with the kids, have the kids have some fun with it. So we do a lot of things outside of the game of basketball to have some fun, and some things on the court to have some fun. They like it the days when I jump into practice too.
Listen, we appreciate your time, and thanks for coming to Plymouth.
Love being here. Thank you.
You bet. This is Lamar Reddix, the head basketball coach for Milton Academy. This interview coming from West Plymouth Basketball, more specifically Federal Furnace School, on a Monday night. We'll continue with more, so stay with us. Okay, as we continue along with edition number 1137, once again, I'm your host, Carl Pratt. This reminder, we come your way every Thursday at 7:30, Sunday nights at 10. Sunday nights at 7:30, we have a program called Flashback as we replay one of our many shows. If we're up to 1137, you never know what you're going to see on a Sunday night starting at 7:30. Well, you know what? The Plymouth North football team had its second victory in a row last week, hosting Falmouth at Plymouth South High School. I had an opportunity earlier this week to catch up with a couple of juniors who are having fine seasons for head coach Kevin Cobbin. Kenny Drew and Pat Danner join us on the program. Well, the Eagles had a very impressive victory this past weekend at Plymouth South, taking on visiting Falmouth. For the Eagles, 2 impressive victories in a row. Tonight on the program, I'm pleased to be joined by Pat Danner to my left, Kenny Drew to my right. These two juniors have figured prominently in the Eagles' success. I'll start with you, Pat. It must have been good to get back on the field.
Yeah, I was out 3 weeks with my knee injury, and I just came back 2 weeks ago against Marshfield. Feels good to get a couple victories in a row.
And how frustrating was it to be on the sidelines? You know the team was starting to turn the corner.
Yeah, I mean, we were on the verge of victory, and you could feel it with each and every game, but it just feels good to be back, and it was tough to watch my team sitting out, losing a couple games.
Talk about how rewarding it is to make a big play, make a big catch, be in the mix, and what gives you the greatest satisfaction?
Just winning. It feels good to get the W, just an overall team victory, and just feels good to get it done.
All right, this is Pat Danner to my right now. This is Kenny Drew. You're one of those linemen that they count on, so people like Sean Burrell can have success. Christian Carr.
Yeah, we don't get much credit, but we always get the job done and running the ball. Christian Carr, we have to make the smallest hole and he'll find it. So We don't have to do much work. The running backs are smart with where they're going to run.
All right, let's talk about last weekend playing the game at Plymouth South High School, the quote-unquote home away from home.
Yeah, we always like playing at our home field, but we've played more home games at South, so it feels more like our home field is South Field. So.
All right, talk about this team, how it started to grow and mature. You guys have got to be pleased now. The taste of victory must be sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome. We have a lot of sophomores that play, so we're a very young team. It's more of a rebuilding year, and we're just coming together.
What about the idea of looking back at the beginning of the season? Is there one or two games you'd like to have over and say you think there could be different results?
The Whitman-Hanson game, definitely. The opening game on our first game on the field, and we lost 17-14 in a very close game. I feel like if we were playing like we are now, we definitely would have won.
All right, let's back up the clock a little bit. In the spring, you're a baseball player. Obviously, you're on the mound. You're a focus of attention during any baseball game. You're one of these unsung heroes in the line. How about for you as a young athlete? What do you take more pride in, being a baseball player or a football player? Maybe not so much pride, but you enjoy.
I enjoy the line. You don't get much credit, and I think that I like that better. Just being unsung, I think it's better.
Let's talk about mixing it up and how this team is starting to build confidence. You got a huge game this week against a very good Barnstable team.
Yeah, I feel like if we play like we can play, it'll be a good game. They're a very good team, and we know that, and all our attention is focused on them right now.
All right, all the attention focused this week on Barnstable. Pat, obviously Barnstable's a very good program. You can't help but look ahead to Thanksgiving Day. You're going to go up against South, who's having a very fine season.
Yeah, we're always looking at South from the first game to the last, you know. I mean, they have really good players. Dylan Oxen, he's having a heck of a year, and hopefully we can just show up that day, show them.
Let's talk about Dylan. Obviously, 28 touchdowns, a terrific season, and for some people, that's way more than a career. This kid's tough. He knows how to juke against the defenders. When you see him in action, what do you think about as a defender?
Well, he's a great player. You got to give him credit where credit's due. He knows how to run the ball, but as a defense, we just got to work together as a team and know how to stop him.
All right, before I let you guys sneak away, if people haven't been to this brand new Plymouth North facility and this outstanding state-of-the-art surface here at Romano Field, how could you sell somebody on it, somebody that has never come to your stadium, and maybe it's a relative coming from out of town, and you say, hey, you got to see what we're playing on?
It's state-of-the-art. You really just got to come and see it. It's something to behold. I mean, most colleges don't even have the surface that we're playing on.
Well, listen, we appreciate your time. Good luck this week against Barnstable.
Thank you.
All right, Kenny, one final word. You go up against Barnstable this week. What about your thoughts?
I feel like I already said it, but if we play like we can play, I feel like it'll be a very good game. And the way that our offense is rolling right now, we can't be stopped.
Well, listen, we appreciate your time as well. Good luck this weekend and the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, this is Kenny Drew to my right, Pat Dana to my left. They've joined us this week on our program. Once again, they're helping to lead the Eagles right back in the mix. Okay, we're just about out of time. We'd like to thank you for yours and invite you back with us once again next week for another edition of our program. Big thank you goes out to Rich Goulart, Will McKinney, and of course Dylan Goulart, who helped out behind the scenes. I've been your host, Carl Pratt. Health and wisdom from the Video Sports page.